Hello, hello. Voice test. Checking. We'll start in just a couple minutes. Just need to make sure everything. Oh. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Curry just sent me a photo of himself at his interview. Curry is also my mod creator / husband. For those of you guys who don't know who I'm talking about, he mods my chat, but he's gone tonight. Looks like it went. He looks like, yeah, he's coming back now. So you guys will all hear my dog. Yeah. You'll hear my dog barking in like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. So just a heads up. Okay. Hello everybody. Those of you, I see a couple more people popping in. So let me switch over my camera. Bam. Nice. Okay. So a lot of stuff on my bench today. Going to be talking about masking and masking types, how to mask paint jobs before we move on to our airbrush today, because we have a bit of work to do on those hands that we painted on Monday. Let me heal over to my bench, stop talking directly at my computer. Okay. So, shake my camera. Hello everybody. So today we will be painting. You can check the agenda. We've got clothes to do today, but first we're going to be talking about masking. Masking is yep, Fried got it. Masking is basically a process that we do to a figure piece when we don't want to paint certain pieces. So here, but I guess as a recap of what we did before on Monday, we painted some skin tone. As you can see, this figure now has, let's see if I can get my camera to focus. Come on, camera. Come on, camera. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can see this figure now has some shiny glossiness to her. She also has a fully painted skin tone, so you can see this figure piece, Phoebe, this figure piece has been gloss top coated, which means that we've applied basically what we call a top coat. It's like a protective layer that we put on top of a figure piece in order to protect it from scratching. If it falls, the paint won't chip. You know, if you put pieces against it, the paint won't scratch off, that sort of thing. So we do this on all of at least I do this on all of my pieces after I finish painting them. I usually wait to top coat, you know, a couple hours or a day after I've painted a piece. So basically what happened on Monday is we painted this, and then the following afternoon I top coated these. So I gave it enough hours to rest and kind of let that paint cure. This is just something that I do personally. You can probably top coat your pieces you know, pretty soon after, because lacquer cures pretty quickly, but you know, I like to wait. I feel like I get a better finish if I wait a little bit. So we did that on both of the faces. You can see they're both really shiny. They look nice now. Pretty nice skin tone. It's actually ended up healthier than I thought it would. I was kind of, at first I was thinking I'd go pretty pale, but these girls, like when I compared it to my other figures, like they're pretty healthy skin tone, but it's good. It matches that nice warm hair that we have. You can see the reflection of my ring light on them, so this is really glossy. Anyway, so we gloss top coat, and we do that because also if we need to start masking, which is what we'll be doing today, we'll have a nice surface for these pieces, for the paint to go on, or not the paint, the tape to go on. And when we put the tape on, it's not going to rip off the paint job underneath. So here is a piece that we will be masking today. Again, my camera will focus on my hand. There we go. Her hands. So you can see that her hands are attached to this apron. You can see the reflection of the shininess from the gloss that I applied. And so what we're going to have to do is go in with some tape and maybe some liquid mask and kind of take that area off so we won't have to be painting it. Sorry, baby. Yeah, so this is a really small area to mask actually. Usually you have like a lot of different areas, or maybe if you want to be painting stripes, you have to like use tape to mask off some of the paint from the stripes. But this will be pretty straightforward. We're just gonna need a lot of tinier tape. So, let's see. Okay, here, message from my friend. Not now if you're watching this. So, we will be masking this, but in order to mask, I think it's important that I give you guys a little bit of background on masking, so I'm not just like doing it and you know, or asking like what the heck is happening. So I generally use 2 or 3 different types of masking materials, which I'm going to cover over here. There are definitely different ones. I'll touch on those ones, at least 1 or 2 different types of tape. But I do not own those pieces, so I can only show you guys what I own. So first of all, the number one most used and most recommended is Tamiya masking tape. This is a yellow tape that comes in various sizes. Usually the 6mm or 10mm type is most commonly found in a hobby store, but it can go down to as small as like 3mm, I think, maybe 4. Just kind of depends. I'm not sure the exact specifications, but this one is a 10mm tape. So when you buy a Tamiya masking tape, you can buy it just the roll by itself, or you can buy kind of the tape apparatus that comes with it. So all you have to do really is take it off and then pull it back and sorry, looking at the camera while I do this. Rip it off. So it comes off really easily. This tape is pretty sticky, so when I am working with my figure, usually when I take a piece of tape, I put it against my finger like 2 or 3 times to kind of lose just a little bit of that tackiness, because I have had issues with this tape ripping up my paint job, just because it is pretty strong. You could probably use a regular tape dispenser, BB. I think that would work. You just want to make sure that the diameter here, or the circumference, is about the same. This one just is specifically meant to go with it, and really I've only needed to purchase like 1 of these ever. And so this one I've used for a long time. I did have 1 other one, but I accidentally lost the little attachment. So if you open this up, let's see, watch me break it alive. You open it up, there's this little slide out thing right here. So this is the little like rough bits that rip off the paper. Let's see if I can focus again. So yeah, you can see the little teeth here. So really what happens is like you don't want to lose this little tooth part, because otherwise you'll just have to use scissors all the time. What I also do most of the time, let me put this back, is I rip off a piece of tape and then I just go in with my scissors, and I have like a small pair of scissors. Let's see. Yeah, so I have a small pair of scissors, and usually I just cut the ends off, because when we're masking, we don't usually need those like tooth patterns on the tape. So, and zooming in yet again. So yeah, you can see the tooth pattern on the tape here. That's usually not what I use when I'm masking unless I don't really care about an area, so I just cut the ends off. But yeah, so this is a piece of Tamiya masking tape. I will come back to this tape once I finish explaining the other tapes on my bench, or I guess masking supplies on my bench, because I do use Tamiya masking tape with this here, so we'll get into this supply real quick. But before that, the next type of tape that I generally use is a Tamiya brand tape, but this is called curved masking tape. So this tape is a little bit different from the Tamiya yellow tape. This tape is pretty much a paper tape. It acts like a painter's tape. You take it off, you rip it, it lays flat, but it's not necessarily great for curved details unless you cut it very thin. So Tamiya also makes what they call curved masking tape. You can see it here, masking tape. Come on, camera. Oh my goodness. one patient I need. Well, you can kind of see it here. So, okay, can't. There we go. Okay, so you can see this is masking tape for curves. And so this is a Tamiya brand item. It comes in smaller lengths and diameters, I guess. So this is a 2mm tape. Actually, this one is technically 2mm tape. They also make 3mm tape. So you can see the difference here. This is 1mm thinner. And so this 2-1 goes with this one. But the purpose of this curved masking tape is for application to curved surfaces. So it's plasticier, I guess if that's a word. Like it has a plastic tech consistency, and it kind of stretches. So you can see as I'm pulling it, it stretches. And so what you can do is take it on a curved surface and put it down and kind of pull it, and it will just curve on the surface. So you can really get some good results here if you're applying it like along a bikini line or something. Yeah, it's like a sticky elastic tape. And so I use this occasionally, not too much to be honest, but it does have its uses, and I do know people that use this tape and they have pretty good results. So I bought this more because I was just curious about how it works and if it would be useful. But I find myself more often than not just using the Tamiya yellow tape with a combination of the liquid mask, which I will show you. Another big note about this type of tape is I very much recommend you keep it in like an airtight bag or something, because it does attract dust. You can see that there's like a lot of fuzzies on the side of this tape, which make applying it not so great, because then sometimes you get like fuzzies on your paint job that you want to mask off. So I kind of just shoved this tape into my drawer, and I kind of regret it because now it's like got all sorts of gross stuff on it. So just kind of put this in a separate bag, clean and free of dust, because otherwise it's gonna be pretty much useless. Yeah, but it does come off really easily. It cuts pretty much the same as a regular tape, so you can see it just kind of, well, yeah, it just pulls off, and you can use it and pull it and stretch it. And so yeah, pretty useful. Definitely like something handy to add to your arsenal if you're wanting to mask, but I wouldn't say that this is a must-have by any means. So the other type of tape, I guess not tape, masking thing that I use is liquid mask. So liquid masking, when we talk about that in the garage kit sense, is a goop or like a liquid that you put onto a piece and it will dry and basically act as like a barrier. It forms like a semi-solid goop barrier that you can just kind of pull off after you're done, and it acts as a masking tape, except it's not tape, it's just goop. So I use the brand by Gaia Notes. This is called Masking Coat R. It is from the Gaia Notes brand, so same manufacturer as like my paint. So you can see the brand here is the same. The little Gaia Notes guy is up here and up here. So this comes out like a goop, and you have roughly a 30-minute wait time before it's good and dry. So it comes out kind of like literally a goop. The thin goop. It flies, you know, like a goo. You can see me kind of smearing it along my hand. But when it dries, it's almost like glue when it dries, like tacky glue, and you can just peel it up. That's what it is. So it has a pretty thick consistency. You can see I just knocked it over, and it doesn't really like spill out or anything. I have had really good results with this masking coat. I have bought this bottle many years ago, and you can see I have so much left. It's like a buy it once and you're pretty much good purchase. And yeah, I don't use it too often because a lot of times I don't really need it if I'm going to be using paper tape on small areas, but this is pretty handy. Another thing that people use it for is if you are masking like a really thin line. So say you put some 2mm tape down, then you cover that tape with the masking coat on the other side, and it will block off any paint job or any paint that you're going to spray. So I'll kind of show you guys that. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but basically this is kind of like a secondary step let's see. Just trying to get this to focus. This is basically like a secondary step that you will use when you are masking. Oh, that's why this is in the way. Okay. 80. Oh my god. You have to put it real close. There. Okay. So yeah, this is basically like a secondary step that I use in combination with my paper tape. I very rarely just like apply this stuff straight on unless I'm putting it onto eyeballs. So what you can also do is just apply straight up liquid mask onto your eyes, and then if your eyes are glossy and then you spray your matte top coat on, you can take this off and your eyes will remain glossy. So I do use liquid masking for my anime figure eyes. Other than that, it just kind of like varies. So that's kind of a heads up on liquid mask. There are other brands as well. Mr. Hobby makes like Mr. Masking Soul, and then there's Soul R, I think. So there's slightly different brands, you know, of masking, liquid masks that are available, but all pretty much do the same job. Okay. Another one, excuse me, that I did not mention, that I don't have personally, I don't use it, mostly because it's kind of hard to find, is a almost crepe tape. So it's a masking tape, but it's very thin and more crepe-like, almost like washi paper. Hasegawa is the brand, or is the manufacturer that makes a lot of those crepe tapes, and I've heard they have very good results. They act very similar to the Tamiya curve masking tape, but they're a little bit easier to take off, and they also go on very smoothly. So this one, like the problem I have with this curve tape is that a lot of times it goes on kind of like thick, and it can almost be hard to manipulate. And once you put this like it on a piece, the stickiness goes away really quickly. So I've heard that the Hasegawa crepe tape does not have that sort of issue, and it's very easy to apply. It lays very flat, so you can get a very clean job with your masking lines, but again, I don't have that. I have not purchased it. Maybe someday when it's back in stock after all this coronavirus stuff is out of the way. So that's the three types that I use. Mostly I use, you know, the regular standard Tamiya yellow, the curved one, and then the liquid mask. And again, I cannot understate how much I prefer to use the yellow tape. Like, there are many imitators, there are many knockoff brands, there are many cheaper ways, but this one is kind of the golden product that a lot of people in this hobby use and swear by. So if I had to choose like brand loyalty to like 3 products, this yellow tape would be one of them. The light curing putty would be the second one. And then the third one would probably be like Gaia Notes paint, just because those are the ones that I use all the time. So yeah. Anyway, what I do usually do in combination with this tape, because you can't just, you know, rip off tape and just stick it on. Sometimes you're dealing with a smaller surface. These days, what I do is I take this tape and I put it through a cutting template. So the brand here is Hasegawa, same brand as the crepe tape paper I was just telling you about. But this is basically a cutting template for your masking tape. So when you buy this product or a similar product, what will happen is you'll receive a metal sheet. It's an etching, and it contains many different, like, you know, stripes here of different widths. So you can see the widths running along here. And this is the width of your paper. So you can cut your paper as thick or as thin as you want it. This one goes all the way down to 0.5 millimeters. So this is in millimeter. So we go all the way up from 5 millimeter down to 0.5 millimeter. And at this range, like, you're getting really small. Oh, my husband's home, I think. You might hear my dog. Yeah, he's home. So what was I saying? Yeah, so you can get really, really thin here, down to 0.5 millimeters. And I typically don't use this small of a width. You can see in the reflection here, it is tiny. But I very often use the 1 millimeter. So yes, yeah, monkey. So I bought this one specifically because I needed something small. Like, a lot of the kits I work on are very small. They require very small tape that, you know, I don't necessarily want to buy. Like, you can definitely buy, you know, 1mm tape, but you're often paying the price for that, so it has a markup for being so thin. So what I just do is I take, like, you know, I buy 10mm strips now of the Tamiya tape, and I run it through here, and I just cut out what I want. So to use this, oh, I kind of have one already here. You just stick the tape on the back, and then once you turn it over, you'll take your X-Acto knife, and you'll just etch along it and cut the tape out. So let me do an example real quick, so you guys can see. You can also see on my bench here, I have a tiny little cutting mat. This I bought kind of on an impulse purchase, but I don't work with a lot of large scale models, and a lot of the tape that I need to cut is really small. So this kind of small 3-inch square here is what I use often when I'm masking. So what you'll do is you'll cut a piece of tape, and I'm just going to show you the process I usually do. I cut a piece of tape, I kind of stick it on my hand once or twice, and then if I can find my scissors, I cut off the edges. You can also do this after you cut your etching, but I find it's easier to just get these out of the way when the piece is bigger. And so let's do 3mm or somewhere in the range of here. You're just going to put your tape on the bottom here. Let's do this one. This is 3mm, yeah. You put your tape on the back, and you can see kind of the yellow in the middle there. Hello, sorry, Curry's here. Hi. Oh. Okay. So yeah, and also Rocket is just sitting on our like mini couch right now. He's chilling. See, Phoebe says hi. Yes, hi. Hi, Rocket. Oh, he wants to show off Rocket. Do you see this paw? Hello, it's Rocket. Lower him a little. There he is.
I'm working on the figure.
Oh my god.
This is my figure now. Welcome to my screen.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, now he's just sitting here. Okay. Anyway, sorry guys. So you're gonna take your tape, and let me move this so it focuses. That was my cat. He was relaxing until he was bothered by my husband. So here's the tape. You can see the yellow. It might be a little hard for this to focus because it's shining. But what you're gonna do is just kind of hold down your etching and go along it with your X-Acto knife. And so I do it on one side and then the other, and what will come up is your cut tape. So this is a 3mm, you know, width piece of tape that you can use for any anything, I guess, any masking purpose. And so what I like to do is I go down to the 1mm and cut that, and usually place it along where I need to, kind of along the edge. A good technique, rather than using these big pieces, is to go in first with a really thin width. Oh no, it's been clipped. To go in with a really thin width and place that along the edge first, and then after that you can use like your squares of tape or whatever, your liquid mask, to correct that area. So what I'll be doing for this piece right here, and we're gonna have to do that before we do any other cloth masking or painting and other masking, because I think I am going to use some liquid mask here, so we're going to need a little bit of time for this to dry before we start painting it. I think that's it in terms of, like, you know, masking FAQ and what I do. So we're going to be masking this piece first tonight, right now, after I finish this convo, and then we're gonna move on. And we've got a bunch of pieces to paint. I'm gonna aiming and doing a lot of the whites today. This apron does have some black or purple black that needs to be painted on it. The area is really small, so it's like, you know, the in between of the stripes here, the top here, and kind of the very top front here. So I might even go in with enamel and paint that. I'm undecided right now, so we'll see. But in order to paint the white, we're gonna have to mask off these hands first. So yeah, that's pretty much the agenda. I'm gonna go ahead and start masking this right now and kind of see how it acts and how small I need to cut the widths and whatnot. And then after I finish that, we can move on to airbrushing. But again, usually like masking can take hours, it can take not so long. It just depends what you're masking. Usually you want to paint after, like shortly after you mask, because the longer your tape is sitting on your kit, the more likely it's gonna like peel up later. And then also, I've heard of people having bad experiences with leaving liquid mask on too long. Like either the paint kind of gets color absorbed from it. I don't know how that would happen, but I've heard that has happened. Or it just like peels up paint later because it really just like solidifies down on it. So we're gonna do that masking and then probably switch over to painting really shortly after. So let's get started. I'm going to, let's see, usually what I do is I just kind of like hold up the piece against my, figure and see what width I need. And I'm gonna go down to like the 1.75 area for now, just because this piece is really small. Let me cut. And again, masking can take hours. It really depends on what figure you're working on, what your patience level is. Personally, masking is my very least favorite part of the process. I absolutely hate it. Just because it's so tedious. And there's ways to make it, easier by using templates. This template has helped me a lot in not hating masking as much, just because I'm able to get such fine results. So this is a 1mm. You can see it's so small, but it cuts up really well. So let's see. And then what I do usually is I kind of set it on the side, like I stick it on my bench or something, and then cut it to size. Also, give me 1 second. I need to go grab a pair of my tweezers. I'm not gonna put my be right back or anything screen on because it's gonna be like 2 seconds. So be right back real quick. Okay, I am back. So I have a pair of tweezers in my bedroom, but I use them often here. So what you will need for masking is like your X-Acto knife, maybe your template, but you're also going to probably need a pair of tweezers. So I have 2 on my bench I usually use. One is just like a standard beauty tweezers. These are actually like just rejects. I used to use them to pluck my eyebrows, but they got kind of dull, so now I just use them for all purpose. And the second one that I use is a pair of like really fine precision tweezers. Let's see. So these are like precision tweezers. They're very, very sharp. This pair is very highly used, so you can see it's kind of like bent at the edge, but I still use them. I still find it really useful. So a lot of times I go in and I use these precision tweezers with it, just so I can get a better job. And let's see, I'm gonna move my lacquer paint cup because I'm gonna be like pushing stuff back and I don't want to spill lacquers. Anyway, so what I do is, where are my scissors now? I cut off a piece of the tape and I just stick it along where I want it to go. And right now I'm kind of guessing, turn that over so I don't stab myself. Kind of guessing what length I need. But you just kind of stick it with your tweezers along the area. And let me see. Hopefully you guys, wow, my hand is seriously blocking this. I don't know if there's a way that I can make this easy. Maybe kind of like that. Hopefully you guys can see it. If not, let me know. I have this problem airbrushing too. Okay, so let me just fix this real quick and then I'm going to show you guys kind of what I just did. So you can see right here, there's a yellow line right here, and that is the 1mm tape that I applied. So it didn't go all the way around. I'm going to need to put a little bit more down. But what we really want to do is put it in an area where it's not gonna be like it's gonna be on the piece for area that you want to mask, but not on the area you don't. I know that's straightforward, but you can see I really put it along the edge of her hand, and so there's still like this space here. Oh my gosh, hard to see it. Yeah, there's still this space here on her kind of cuff of her arm, and that space is gonna get painted with white. So that's pretty much that. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to mask all along her hands here, and then in the middle part I'm gonna put liquid mask. So let's see how this goes. And don't be afraid, you know, to like recut pieces of tape if you need to. That happens quite often. I just kind of guess what length I need. It is important also though that you don't get any fuzzy or dust on your tape, because that can affect your paint job. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. Hard to tell because this light is so bright, but the yellow basically extended all the way down to the edge of her hand there. So I am going to go up here. I'm gonna need to cut a little bit more, I think. But yeah, you can see how like in this case, this just like big tape is not gonna cut it. You really have to you know, cut it to the length that you need. Also, these precision tweezers are like really fantastic for kind of pushing it in to an area. Yeah. So the problem too with this tiny tape is that the edges do kind of peel up after a while, so that's why we introduced the liquid mask, because it forms another barrier and that tape kind of stays stuck on the kit. But yeah, you really don't want it to be on the area that you're gonna be painting. So and this kit is a little interesting. Luckily, this masking job is not going to take too sometimes, oh my goodness, I'm just sitting here for hours cutting tape and applying things, and that gets old real quick. Okay, I need to cut another piece. So sometimes I just save this kind of excess stuff, so when you're using a cutting mat, you get, you know, weird lengths, and a lot of times I just stick that on my bench so I can use it later. You can like use these papers twice, so you pull it up and then stick it back on the diameter or the width that you want, but I'm just going to use a new piece. So we try not to waste too much tape, even though this masking tape is not too expensive. You know, it's still hobby brand, so there's that markup there. Cut the edges off and put it down. And then we're going to cut 1 millimeter. Again, just lightly pressing down on your mat and your etching thing. You don't need to use too much force because that paper is just gonna cut and fly. So here's another 1 millimeter strip. I'm gonna put it on my bench here. I'm just gonna cut it. This one looks a little bit thinner than the other one, so sometimes like the pieces do get a little thinner than you expect. So it's not a one size like fits all perfect situation here. So if you do need exact strips, so if you're doing like stripes or something, I would recommend you like check your widths after you use this and cut with it, or buy like a very set dedicated size, like 2 millimeter, and then the whole roll will be 2 millimeter. This again is just like masking random stuff off, so I'm not too concerned about the size of it. But for things like stripes, it can be, oops, a problem if the stripes aren't the same size, you know. I had to do some plaid for a previous figure. It'll probably go through my past builds. It's Miyazawa Kenji from Bungo something Alchemist. Bungo to Alchemist? Yeah. And that required painting plaid, and so I did not have this etching tool at the time, so I cut every single one of those strips by hand to the width that I needed in order to paint that plaid. And after that, I was like, never again. I'm never doing that again. And I bought this etching tool. I googled, you know, stuff like this, and bought the etching tool right after, because that took so long to mask all of that, and I just had no experience with it. So that was a first. Yeah. What I'm also doing is kind of taking a toothpick, and sometimes you can kind of push the tape to where you want it, so you don't necessarily have to use the tweezers all the time. Tweezers help guide you, but then sometimes it's not like right along the flush area where you want it, so in that case I go in with my toothpick. This one's going to be a little tricky. There's a really like tiny bit of her hands in the top, kind of between the cuffs, and so I'm hoping I can get in there with, yeah, I can get in there with tape, but it's gonna be a little annoying. So let me cut it here. So really cutting tiny now. You can see that's the strip that I'm working with, and that's gonna go in between her hands. Oh, I might need the longer one of those two. I cut it a slightly shorter one. Okay. And the concern also here is once you stick this masking tape in these really small cracks, hope that your gloss reached it, because otherwise that paint job is just going to get ripped right off. So really you want to make sure that you top coat everything really good and glossy. Almost done with the perimeter here of the hands. I'm really trying to like move my hand. I'm left-handed, if you haven't noticed. And so I know it blocks the camera a little bit, but the angle like of the camera from the right side is just, it doesn't work very well. The lighting is really off, so I'm trying to position my hand, and also I need to position it better when I'm spraying today. I watched the VOD from Monday, and I feel like my hand was just in the way half the time. So I apologize if you guys didn't get to see very much. I tried to show it in between, but it's tough. Also, I did notice that when my compressor, like when my airbrush was running and my compressor was running, but I didn't have my booth on, it would like half noise gate me, and so some of what I said was kind of like fuzzy. So also, if you're watching the VOD later, I'm sorry for that. I will not be leaving my airbrush running then, if it's gonna half noise gate me. Almost done. Don't know if this will show up on camera, so we'll try. Okay, I think that's good for the perimeter. So what you can see here, focus. Come on, camera. There we go. So you can kind of see, it's kind of hard because she's fleshy yellow already. Let me turn down my light, maybe that will help. Kind of. So you can see this yellow tape along the sides, and this is all along her hands. Oh, it's pretty bright still, sorry guys. But yeah, like there, you can see the tape running along the sides. None of it is actually touching the apron. It should just all be on her hands. So what we will do now that we have this kind of perimeter, mapped out, is we're gonna go in with just a tiny bit of the liquid mask, and we're gonna fill in the rest of this area, so the top of her hands here. And so a good way to do that is, to do your perimeter first, and then you can tape over this. So I could just use regular masking tape and go and kind of tape over this area, but liquid mask is helpful for these smaller areas because it'll just kind of like flow. It's viscous, so it'll flow kind of along the tape, but it will not like go over it. And so you're dealing with like a different surface area. So let's see. When I do this, I usually just take a tiny drop and kind of put it on to the piece. Let's try to get a good bit. So yeah, when it comes out, it'll look like this. And what I really do is I just kind of go along my kit and I dab it lightly. Hopefully you guys can see that. So I just put it onto the piece. I don't usually work with a lot at a time because this stuff does like flatten very quickly. But you want to go slow and make sure that you're not going over the edge of your tape. So you can touch the edge of your tape, but you don't want to go too far over it because otherwise it's just going to flow and kind of start hitting areas you don't want it to. So I'm just very lightly, sorry if you guys can't see it, I have to look at it too, very lightly touching it, trying to get a thin but also like full layer over the pieces. And when it flattens down, you really won't be able to tell it too much. It's gonna dry kind of a darker blue color. But yeah, I'm just barely using any of this at all. Notice, you may be able to notice that as I'm pushing it like into the cracks and applying it, it kind of goops up as it's coming up off the toothpick. And you want to be careful you're not moving too quick because those little tiny strands of the goop can get off into other areas. So it's really hard to explain. They're like thinner than a hair strand, but you can see the little goop. I'm almost done, so I'll show you guys. Make sure that it covers everything. This stuff might rip off the paint, so we'll have to see. I have like pretty good results with this, but there's like a 2 out of 10 chance that it can also just go crazy on you. A lot of that 2 out of 10 is like your fault, so user error. But yeah, so here are the hands. You can see there's a barrier of tape now, so that yellow really shows once the hands are masked off. But the blue, all of that are also the hands, and so that blue is the goop that's gonna dry, but it's gonna also protect your paint job. So let me just check one more time, make sure that everything that I've masked is what I want, and then I'm gonna set all of this aside. And we didn't put too much glue on here, so it probably won't take that long to dry, but usually I just wait like half an hour. I do touch it because you can kind of move it around. Right there, I added a little bit onto the apron and I don't want it there, so I'm gonna just kind of move it off. If you do get it in an area that you don't want, you can kind of just lightly scratch it off, and because it is like a viscous goopy stuff, it will just like rub off, especially if you top coated the piece already. So there. Okay, so yeah, yep, these are the hands. Hands are now masked. We are going to wait About half an hour, but we can definitely start painting other pieces. So these hands and then her shoes were basically the only thing, and her eyes, I guess, are the only thing that will eventually need masking. So we're very lucky for this kit that there's not a lot of masking involved because it can be tedious. Excuse me. So I'm gonna set this aside and put this stuff away, and we will transition into airbrushing. So hope you guys' nights are going pretty well. It's already Wednesday, hard to believe. Today ended up being pretty busy for me, so it's always crazy when days go by. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. Here's kind of a visual description of the tapes and how thin they cut. So I cut this as kind of a guide for myself, but they can get pretty thin. So we've got 0.5 millimeter over here, all the way up to 3 millimeter. And yeah, this particular cutting tool also cuts angles, so I thought that was interesting. I haven't really seen that. I haven't really needed a ton, but it's a cool option. You can see this blue tape here, that's painter's tape, just like 3M generic painter's tape from the hardware store. I have used this tape because sometimes you need thicker widths. Like I needed to cut, you know, an odd pattern, and the Tamiya tape is so thin. The 10 millimeter was not enough, so the painter tape is like twice that. It's like this thick, so you can really cut whatever shape you want. So that is an option as well. The blue one is a pretty good one. I didn't have any peeling errors, paint errors with that, so I recommend. Okay. Anyway, let me put this back away. Stick this back in here. Again, if you have any questions at all, please just feel free to ask them. These sessions are also for you guys. So I want to make sure that we are answering anything. So, peek back. Okay. I have a little board set on my left here, and I usually just put all of my tools, like tapes and stuff, in there. So, tapes along the bottom. Okay. X-Acto knife. Don't think we need that anymore. Yeah, we're good. Cutting template, I'll just like shove somewhere else. So, okay, time for painting. So today, where did my hairband go? I had oh, it fell on the ground. I was gonna talk about my hairband. Today we'll be painting some more clothing. So last time we finished skin, we didn't have a chance to start clothes, but we will do that today. We did a little bit of that, so we touched base on it with 2 pieces a couple sessions ago, namely like stuff like her ribbon. So you can see this one does have a little bit of shading on it already. What we're going to be doing is pre-shading the white with, where is it? If I can find it. Not shaken up, you can see the beautiful gradient here. This is my cocoa milk mixture that I pre-made, that we tested on a spoon, and it's kind of you can see it's a very softer brown reddish color. We're going to be applying that first in the cracks of the clothing and any like shaded areas, and then we're going to top coat that with white, and so the white will really blur out that this cocoa milk powder and make it sort of a reddish gray. And then after that, I'm going to go in again and top coat it, or like shade areas further, with the Lash of Us 03. So Lash of Us 03 is getting a lot of use on this kit because she's so red toned. Like we used it on her skin tone, and now we're going to use it as additional shading for the clothes. So I just really like this shade or this paint. So okay, we're also going to be using my Badger, so the Badger Sotar 2020. This is my detail brush. Not much more to say about that. It is a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, or needle and nozzle. Beauty and grace. A couple of like hours ago, not even, it's like an hour ago, I did notice the trigger was being a little funky and it just kind of popped out. So we're gonna hope that I fixed it, and if not, I'll just have to do some repairs on screen. So let me take that off. Here's the sharp needle. Come on, sharp needle. Yep, so sharp needle, you can't even really see it, but it also stabbed me earlier 8 times. There we go, it's shiny. Yeah, so we're gonna use that to detail shade. So let me turn on my airbrush. Oh, a weird hum. And let me test the spray real quick. Make sure that everything's all in order. Okay. And let me grab my mask. And I gotta open my window. Okay. Should be a nice night tonight, so don't think there's any risk of rain or anything, or heavy wind. That will be good for painting. Okay. And make sure that's good. Alright. We're just gonna put a little bit of the cocoa milk into the airbrush. And I'm going to turn on my airbrush booth, so again I will be noise gated. You guys won't hear anything, but this is a small airbrush, so it's going to go through paint pretty quickly, so I can turn it off and answer any questions if you guys have them. So that's pretty much it. We're going to do all the pre-shading. We've got 1, 2, 3, maybe like 4 or so pieces. Debated actually. Yeah, okay, so what we're gonna do, I was just thinking because this piece also needs, let me zoom in on now. This piece also needs some white, but we're gonna delay that because we've got, this masking tape on that needs to dry. aside that I did shade this piece before, but I think I applied too much white paint on top of it, so I'm gonna go in and do this piece just again and see if I can get the paint to show up a little bit more, just not put as thick of a white coat on it. So like this piece, this ribbon ended up being fine, but this one was not, so. All right, I'm going to continue with the pre-shading, but I did just want to take a quick break because I need to fill up my paint cup and take a quick look at this. So you can see a lot of the pre-shading, well, kind of hard to see because it's blown out, but you can see this kind of darker brown color in between. That is the pre-shading. Let me see if I can put it up against my phone. A little bit better. You can see that the brown is really starting to show through, although it's quite bright here, so should not be too crazy what we're gonna do with pre-shading anyway, because it's gonna fade out a lot. So gonna put that. I don't think I'm gonna bother with the ribbon because we've already done that. So the next thing that we'll do is work on her bloomers. So all of this is gonna be white pretty much. let me see if I can make the reference bigger. Yeah, so this is the Maid kit. You can see that she has these like white stockings basically. Most of this is white. Her bloomers are white too. So I did not decide to do skin tone legs or anything like that. So it's going to be very easy, but we're going to need to shade a lot of that white. So let's see, smaller, we'll adjust that later. But all of this, so all of these bloomers have like a bunch of, you know, little cracks and stuff. All of those are going to be shaded. Pretty much everything along here all the way down to her shoes. So we're going to try to do as much shading as possible. I don't need to go too crazy, but I do want to for sure at least have shading right around here in her legs and probably the bottom of her shoe area, so where her shoe connects to her leg in the strap. That's where I would like the shading, but this is a really, really tiny spot. Like my thumb is right here and this is the size of her shoes. So it may be difficult to get that small of a line, especially on like a certain angle. So I may need to position my hand that's kind of blocking it. So just a warning. But yeah, so this will be the next piece. Let me see how these are doing. Actually drier than I thought. So this will be ready soon, maybe like 10 minutes or so. Yeah, so I think after that we can just start shading her apron as well. I'll take a look after we're done with this piece and see, but I think we'll be pretty much good to go and continue spraying on this one after this one. So we can do whites in order. Okay, also need to make sure that my paint is good. Yep, I just ran out apparently, so I need to put a little bit more of the cocoa milk in. And so far no like real splatter with this, so it's thinned out just right. I know that other paint we had a little bit of an issue with the thinning out. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to turn my booth back on. Thanks again for your patience with not hearing the airbrush sounds. Hopefully next kit and next stream that we do, we'll be able to work out some of that. Like this is the first time that I've done any of this live, so didn't anticipate needing to like noise gate and do that sort of stuff. So thank you. As I said, it was thinned out well. I'm running into issues now. So I'm gonna thin this just a tiny bit more. What's happening is I'm spraying out at about 17-20 psi, and a little bit of like particles are splattering on, and so that my paint is a little bit too thick. If we want splatter, I want it to be thinner, and it's coming out in like weird particles. So Luckily, it's easy enough. If this happens to you, you may be able to get away from it by using a melamine sponge. So you can just kind of scrape it away quickly before it has a chance to cure, or dry, not cure, dry and cure, but mostly dry. And that way, you won't be able to get anything. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna spray in each of these little cracks to pre-shade, and then we are going to go in with the white and top coat that, and that'll keep these shaded. I'll probably go over them again with the post shading with the Mr. Lashavis, but this is just something that I'm doing to give it a little bit more definition. So that's what you're seeing here. as you can see, and as you mentioned, Fries, pre-shading does, bring out a lot of the definition of a kit that's all white already. I'm currently just giving this another look and kind of sounding off these areas painted stuff that I don't want, and just kind of seeing if there's anything else here I need to pre-shade. I went in kind of rough because the area is so small. A little bit of it kind of got splayed out, like the paint sprayed out, but for pre-shading it's not too big of a deal because we're going to be covering it with top coat anyway. And you do have this problem with opaque paint a lot of times, is it just like sprays out. So the clear will not have this problem. So yeah, you can see I kind of sanded in and really defined the areas and straps around her shoes. So the shoes are a lot more defined here. All the I guess the straps are well defined in her ankle area. I also went in around her bloomers kind of roughly because you're not really going to see a lot of this. Let me put on. Once the kit is assembled, really, like, you're not going to see any of that. You're only going to see down here unless you look up. So we won't be messing around with that. So bloomers, like top, aren't really that big of a deal. It's more so the like flowery edge sticking out there that I want to make sure is shaded real well. But I think that's fine for now. So let me set this piece back. Yeah, if I could grab, there it is. Oh, I see. Grabbed the wrong clip. We're gonna take that and set it aside. And again, we will be shading that again, so there won't be an issue. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, so our liquid mask we applied earlier tonight is pretty much dry. Let me zoom out. On. There you go. Oh, just had it. Okay, so you can see this blue here is pretty much flattened and dried at this point. This is what dry liquid mask looks like. So it's just a kind of glossy, shiny blue. And when we peel up the tape, it will come up with it. So as of now, we can shade and spray all of this area, and any of the paint that hits these hands is not going to affect the paint layer that is like on the hands. So the masking tape will protect that. So I'm going to go in now and pre-shade pretty much all of this apron area here. I'm going to go in up along the sleeves. I'll probably shade kind of along the middle here so you can see the line of her waistband. I'm going to go in along that and pre-shade. Probably do the back frills as well, and any other areas that I see. So I'm not really going to bother with the straps here. Really just the frills are what we're going to focus on. Maybe, no. So I was thinking maybe I'd do this kind of, you can see her ridges right here, but I'm not going to work on those. I'm really just going to focus on the frills of the apron. So. Okay. Oh yeah, let me check. Good. Yeah, we're good on that. So I'm just kind of spraying a line. You can see the line here as I spray it. And then we use that to check to make sure everything's fine. very, very quick aside because I just noticed there's a tiny, tiny piece of liquid mask. There we go. That was sitting on the apron. So little flakes you can kind of pull off once they're dry, but I just noticed that was in the way. So just kind of had to peel that off. So I'm gonna go back to the pre-shading. Don't know how well you guys can see it. It's starting to look like something that will focus. You can kind of see the brown starting to be in there. It's gonna be pretty subtle until we really, add on other colors and stuff. So let's keep going. turn that off. I think we're pretty much good with the pre-shading. Again, we don't want to go in like too crazy, and honestly, once I top coat all of this, you're probably really not going to see too much of it, but I did introduce it as another step because I liked how it looked when we did it on the spoon. So, you know, once we get the white on top of this, you're not going to see pretty much any of this brown. So let's take a quick look. Again, pretty difficult to see, but you can kind of tell. You can see there's a good angle. So you can see the brown shading on pretty much all of the frills. You can also see the waistband is a lot more well defined because I went in and I shaded the top and that's my hair, the top and the bottom of the waistband there. And so really what we want to be doing is like accentuating areas that look like they would have shadow anyway. That's kind of the whole process of pre-shading, is looking at you know, your figure and figuring out where the light would hit normally and where the shadows would be, and then accentuating that area. So you know, even when you paint flat colors on your figure, you're going to be seeing some shadows cast by your paint and shadows naturally, but pre-shading and just adding shading or pastels to your figure in general will help bring out that definition even more. So we have done that for this piece. I'm really liking how the pre-shading is looking so far. You can still see there's like all of this overspray from the hands. So once we top coat this with white, a lot of that should disappear. We may still get a little bit of shadowing from that paint because you can't ever really, you know, spray white on top of a color like this and have it turn totally white unless you're completely saturating the area. But again, we don't want to oversaturate this area with paint because we're dealing with her hands right there, and so any leakage, you know, if there is any leakage from the masking tape onto her hands, if you overspray, that chance is going to be higher. So we have this piece, and then let's see how her bloomers look. You can see they're both pre-shaded and pretty well defined. Camera will focus. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, the pre-shading will help a lot. Actually, let me see what it would look like with her apron on. That's a real easy way to tell. So yeah, there you go. You can see a little bit more of the shading here. Once the black is on here, that'll really help as well. There's another angle. So what we're going to do next, since all of these pieces are pre-shaded, is we're going to go over them with a white, another hair. We're going to go over it with a white top coat, meaning I'm just going to spray Tamiya white, or not Tamiya, sorry, Gaia Notes EX flat white on top of these. And then we will post shade. So basically do what I did again, but with the Lashavas 03. And so really I'm just, a lot of times I go through a pre-shading, I top coat, I post shade, and so my process of shading is very gradual, but I expect we can probably finish all of the white tonight, and if we have time, we'll move on to the black. I may just start the skirt so we can kind of see a comparison, but we'll see where we're at with time. I'm willing to go a little bit later tonight, so if you guys are willing to stick around, that's fine with me. Yeah, I'm just looking at this Maid in the light, taking a drink, and let me take this back, put it on. Also, I do want to note, she does have some details, I think I've covered this a couple times, on her hands, such as like these little buckles here. These are not going to be painted on anytime soon, really once we are in like the detail phase, so cleaning up any details, cleaning up any, you know, bad masking lines, painting eyes. That's typically when I apply details and stuff like this. So we will see how much detail cleanup there needs to be. There really wasn't that much, but like her legs might need some enamel cleanup later. So that's kind of part two. Part one of all of this is like spraying everything with an airbrush, and then part two of the painting is really going in with the details and painting with enamel paint. So tiny enamels, I use Gaia Notes enamels. We will be covering that later, and for that we'll be switching back to my other desk setup, so you guys will be able to see it from like straight above and no hands blocking. also do want to note, actually I'll clean out my airbrush while I'm talking about this, that if you are buying black and white paint, so black and white lacquer paint, lately I kind of recommend buying gloss instead of flat. So meaning, like, this is EX flat white. There's also like an EX gloss white. I recommend buying that one instead, because it will help your top coat, like your gloss top coat, look a lot better. And I find it's a lot easier to go from a gloss to a matte rather than like a flat to a gloss to a matte, if that makes sense. I'm finding that when I'm using this flat white lately on my kits, I'm getting kind of interesting results with my sealer sometimes, and that normally didn't happen when I used the EX glosses, or just like gloss paints in general. So out of personal preference, I prefer to use gloss black and gloss white. If you're spraying metallics, you will also have better results if you start out with a gloss black. So you can definitely like have a flat black and then top coat it glossy and then go from there and spray your metallic, but starting with that gloss black I think really helps it up, give it that extra shine. So just kind of a DIY or a heads up, like FYI kind of tip. Next time I finish going through this flat white, I am going to be converting back to my gloss. I don't know why I bought flat white. I think it was just what was in stock at the time. So, yeah, let me take off my mask real quick because my hairband fell out, and I need to switch my airbrush anyway because we're going to be switching over to the Iwata for the all over white coat. Oh, here's wish. This Iwata I think was already cleaned, so I don't need to do any additional cleaning to it. Yeah, the cup is all pretty clean. Nice and brassy though, because it's old. Okay, here's my hairband. A lot of times too, I know I just mentioned, you know, flat and gloss paints, but I will tell you on a bottle, if your paint is glossy or flat. So you can see for this Lash Abyss, it does say gloss. Mr. Hobby always puts their kind of designation down here in the bottom left. The Gaia Notes ones, the big bottles, say it like on the top here. And then let me pull up another over at my bench. Okay, that was a bad example. Oh, God. Reaching over far. Okay. The Gaia Notes ones will say it kind of in the top. So you can see here, this one says gloss up at the top. So it will tell you, you know, in the description if you're buying your paint, whether a paint is glossy or flat. So make sure to keep that in mind when you are buying paints, because it does matter. Most of them are glossy. Like, it's more so rare that you find a totally flat one, but flat will also give you different effects. Okay, so we're going to thin some white now, and I do have a dropper here, so I'm going to use 1 part of my hardware thinner and 2 parts of my Mr. Color leveling thinner. So this one, leveling thinner. Oh, you guys know, you see it. Don't need to focus for that. Okay, and I'm going to use 1 dropper of this flat white. I don't usually mix the flat white because it's such a big bottle. You can see it's getting pretty nasty. Might need more than this, so I don't know why I put that lid back on. But we'll see. Okay, just double checking to make sure that it's the right consistency. You can see that all of the paint is kind of, you know, heading toward the bottom of the cup. It's not clumping anywhere, so we're pretty much good. Just dump all of this in the cup. Let me check to make sure I'm spraying. Do a quick test. Yep, we're good. So, pour all of this in. Yeah, that's unfortunate, Fries. I know Steel Model has been out of a lot of stuff lately. The last order I placed with them was back in December, and they were all like last December, and they were already running really low on things. Yeah, I don't even know how if they're shipping now or what order they're in at the moment. Hi Allie, how are you, by the way? Yeah, I'm not sure where they're shipping. When I got them, my paints, it was still by boat, so I got them not too long ago. It was this month, but it took them like 2 or 3 months, and that's pretty standard. The boat shipping is like 2 to 3 months, but they're also running low on their stock. So I think when I bought this flat white, I got this off of Volks. I don't know, I think they probably had the gloss, but at the time I was just like, oh, I'll put flat in my cart. Oh yeah. I would send them an email, Fries. Like, basically I pestered them every week for almost a month until they're like, oh, here's your invoice. Not that, they get tons and tons of emails, so they probably just try to respond to them in order of what they get. But even so, it takes a while, and there's people who just give up because they don't hear a response back. But I would continue pestering them, especially if you placed your order, so that way they can set your stuff aside, because I was really scared that like my stuff would sell out. And so I was like, please, like, just set it aside for me, invoice me, so I can get them. Yeah. But in other words, like, you could also shop from Volks or somewhere if you're in a pinch. Hello, JMMO81, how are you tonight? We are just about to spray some white onto my garage kit pieces. Just answering a couple questions about painting and where I bought my white paint. So it's getting difficult. I wonder if Volks actually has anything in stock. So, sorry you guys are staring at my empty booth. Let me check Volks real quick and see if they have any gloss white. Oh. They have semi-gloss white. Let's check Gaia color. Okay, yeah, so they do have semi-gloss white. Let me see. They have flat white. That's... Yeah. Maybe they only have semi-gloss. Oh, that's... Is this? Interesting. Never mind, I'm not gonna link this. It's like clear. Clear paint. Oh, maybe I'll just look up EX. Notes. So they're larger bottles. They're generally named EX. So if you have any. Oh, that was it. Yeah, I don't think they have it. Just checking. Yes, they have flat white and flat black. Don't see a gloss anywhere listed though, so that's unfortunate. So yeah, again, it's getting difficult to find glossy stuff. At least the big ones. Okay, anyway, my paint's been sitting in my brush. What is going on? Oh, there we go. Okay, it's pretty much good to go. So we're going to top coat all of these pieces now. Yeah, that's the other thing, Fries. The markup on Volks is like pretty intense, so that's why I try to do all my bulk orders in seal model. And then, yeah, sorry, we're just my live shopping stream. We're going out. Okay. So I'm gonna be noise gated again. This step won't take really too long because we're just gonna give it a light spray and get that white paint on it. And then after that, we'll be putting on the top coat. So again, compressor going on. We're good. a quick break. I need to mix a little bit more white, so figured I'd turn my compressor off and just kind of tell you briefly what I did. All of these pieces are being sprayed with white, and really there should not be that much of a drastic change since, you know, the primer was already white. What we do want to see is the paint that we applied in that pre-shading kind of fading out and not being so strong. So if you saw any like tiny splatters in your pre-shading or anything like that, adding that top coat on top of them will essentially wash it out and kind of blur everything together. So let me mix this real quick and then I will see if there's any difference I can show you guys on camera. That's pretty good. Hello Quiliana, just caught me at a good time while I'm mixing more paint. We are doing well. We finished up some skin tone on Monday and right now we are spraying clothes. So we are working on her apron and other assorted things. So this is the piece that we essentially just painted white all over. You can see that the shading is a lot more subtle now. It's not quite as crazy brown, but it's still present. So, you know, it almost looks like it's like washed in, which is good. That's fine. What I am thinking of doing, and now that I look at this kit a little bit closer and noticing, you know, tiny cracks of detail and stuff, I might go in with an enamel wash to kind of fill in the detail area more. So what I mean by that is you can see that there's these little tiny details inside of the frills. They're kind of like, you know, what is essentially supposed to be the lace or some sort of detail. But it's really hard to spray and get that detail area really well defined. There's a little better angle. You can see the little cracks in between each of these little flowery petals of her bloomer sticking out. And so what I might do is go in with some enamel paint and thin it down really well, and then just apply color into those cracks that way. And so that's going to give you a little bit more shading in these areas, because as a whole, like, this piece is super boring. Like it doesn't look like there's a lot going on. Even with the apron, you know, it's kind of not that much to shade. So what I think I'll do is go in after in the detailing phase, and we'll try to bring out some more of these details, because again, like, this is fine, but I like to have my kits shaded a little more than this. So especially after we do the lash of this step, that's when I'll see if I need to go in with enamel. So one more piece to do the white top coat on, this piece right here. So here's the difference. Again, not too crazy, but you can see that the brown here there's the brown. The brown here is definitely more well defined than this piece, which is painted with the white top coat. So that's what pre-shading does. It kind of just blurs out the color, but you can still see it's kind of red on this one, and that's what we want. Making good product. Didn't the sculptor this kit just come out with a new kit on their booth? Yes. I don't know. I don't think it was a new kit, but they did open up their orders on booth for like 5 minutes or something crazy, because like I saw it one day, like a couple hours after they had posted the tweet, and then I checked because I was like, oh my god, that Maid that I wanted that I missed out at Wonder Festival, and it was already sold out. So whatever the sculptor's doing, they have like 3 copies of everything. It's just so frustrating. And also, like, after dealing with this kit, I don't know how I feel about buying another one of their kits. Like, I love these sculpts, but unless they work out some of their like production process, I might just take it easy and just stick with owning this Maid and no other Maid at the moment. But if any of you guys you know, buy it, let me know how it is. Do their kits have a bunch of problems? Yes. If you check my Instagram, I made a post about like basically showing all the putty areas and the holes that I had to fill in. We spent somewhere like 10 to 12 hours plus just correcting sculpt issues and filling in all the bubbles, and primer was a whole deal. So I don't know if I would work on another one of this sculptor's kits anytime soon when I have a bunch of other ones that, you know, need attention. But The sculpts are very cute, so it's worth the work. It's just like, do you want to put in the work for it? I wouldn't say that this would necessarily be a huge beginner kit. This is more of an intermediate area if you have knowledge of puttying and filling in lots of holes. The parts fit was pretty good, but I did need to do a little bit of correction, so I can only speak for this Maid, this kit, but yeah, I wouldn't say that this is a perfect beginner kit. The parts, like number is great for beginners, but just the technicalities of correcting things, not really super beginner material, but definitely like a normal problematic kit. So if you're looking to, kind of challenge yourself a little more and learn more about this kit building process, these would be good choices just because they are so simple. Hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of a info. Again, though, it's like tough because every sculptor's kits are different, and even sometimes, they get better over time, they get worse over time. So it is kit independent. Okay, so we're gonna top coat this apron really quick, and then I will take a final look, and then we can start doing the post shading. So we're gonna try to wrap up all of the white tonight, and so my stream will go a little bit longer than 10 p.m. So if you guys are able to stick around, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. If not, I hope you guys have a great night, but I'm gonna be continuing airbrushing. Hopefully this camera will focus too. Let's see. Come on, camera. Whoa, what is going on? I'm gonna try to diagnose this before we continue spraying, because I don't want it to be totally blurry. And did not focus. Oh my goodness. Come on. What's happening? Sorry guys, give me 1 second. Maybe if I put my hand up, it'll focus. Okay, of course. Yeah, so there we go. All right, I think we're good. So I'm gonna turn on my booth now. Alright, brief intermission. I realized I made kind of a dumb mistake. I'm turning this pieces, and I think a piece of it just like touched my glove, because that paint job just kind of fractured. So what we're gonna do is go in real quick with a 2000 grit sandpaper after this gets a little bit drier, and just kind of buff the area down. So make sure like you're not holding your piece too close, because that can happen. Let me wait a little bit longer, because it still looks, you can see it's kind of shiny, so it's still kind of wet. I've been looking for good beginner kits I'm not too attached to. The only ones I have are pretty much Grail. Working on the only one didn't have a parts. Yeah, that can be tough if you're just starting out and you just have your Grails. A lot of times, well, I can't really attest to like what I do because it's been so long. But when I first started out, not quite. Oh, this is still pretty moist. Not quite as recommended these days, but a lot of people I know start out working on recast figures. So the ethical boundaries of that are up for you to decide, but recasts are basically bootleg versions of garage kits produced by companies in China that do this on a big scale. So they have thousands of kits. They have the molds too, or hundreds, and then they take the original mold, the original kit mold, and make more figures from it. So the benefit of that is that the kits are a lot cheaper, as in like cost wise. You're not paying that original figure price because you're not buying an original work from the sculptor. A lot of times a bulk of the work is already done on them because the company will clean up the kit for you, so you don't have as much holes or anything to worry about. A downside of it, of course, is the ethical boundaries of it, or the how you feel about buying figures that don't support the artist, as well as sometimes the resin can be still kind of bad. Sometimes the company will like over sand, so you end up with the kit having details taken out. Another thing is they use the mold so many times that a lot of times detail is lost. So it's just a couple pros and cons of it. But if you're just a lot of people these days actually do tend to avoid buying recast, which is great. I think that the availability of original kits has opened up a lot compared to when I first started. So when I first started, it's really difficult to get original figures. You didn't really have that option of buying original quite as much unless you knew where to look or you knew of someone who was in Japan. And so a lot of us older people got our start with recasts. But these days, like, you can buy a figure, for 8-10K off of Booth directly, and I'm talking about yen. So 8,000, 10,000 yen, it's about $80, $100. Support the artist, all that goes in their pocket. There are tons of cheaper original kits on Mandarake or Jungle, Surugaya, Yahoo Auctions. So these days, like, you can buy all of those and have them shipped directly to your door. Don't really have any issues, otherwise, and you can find original kits for as low as like 500 yen. I've bought original kits for as low as that. So really it just depends, if you're looking for something ultra specific, if you want to paint, saber altar from the specific sculptor's one, you're either going to pay that original price, which is probably pretty high, or you're going to buy a recast. So if you're willing to kind of mess around on some other rando characters, like, you can definitely find cheaper stuff and just practice on those. There's a lot of grails that I purchased early on in my figure building career, I guess, and I just haven't touched them because, either I didn't feel comfortable with it at the time and now I don't have time, but you kind of save those ones you really cherish and then work on other stuff until you feel more comfortable. So that's just kind of my thoughts, my brief thoughts on it, I guess. Definitely be willing to kind of experiment. Okay, so this paint is pretty much dry at this point, so what I'm going to do is sand it down very, very gently with a 2000 grit sandpaper. Again, what happened was I was painting and kind of not paying attention, and I think my glove hit like the top part of this frill, and so some of this paint got kind of scratchy. Let me see if I can show you guys after. I'll just show you. Hopefully it will show on the camera. See? Maybe. You can kind of see it's a little bit scratchy here. I'm not super concerned about this because also a gloss top coat will buff it out, but really we don't want any big chunks of paint to be sticking out, so I'm just gonna go in real thin and lightly and buff this down. You can also use the melamine sponge, but for real damage, I kind of go in with the 2000. Or, yeah, that front is the only part. Yeah, not super noticeable, so that's good. And then we will be actually painting over the inside here with the black, so really I just need to make sure that this top part here is buffed out. And you also may be able to notice that after spraying the white, there's still a little bit of that peachy overspray kind of beneath the hands. And so again, what we talked about was we can't ever really eliminate a color entirely, but luckily this will act as the shading beneath the hands and inside as well, so not super concerned. If you really want to minimize your overspray, you just got to go in a little more carefully. This does happen, you know, you're touching your pieces, you're holding them the wrong way, but there's always a way to correct it. So after I do the 2000, I'm gonna lightly buff this up with the melamine sponge. So melamine sponge is much higher grit, anywhere between like 3000 and 5000, I think. So just don't need to do too much. Okay. Still a little bit rough, but again, this is just like a practice or fun kit. If this were a commission, I'd probably just be like, oh, cursing right now, but not too bad. Okay, so I think that's good. I am going to just put a little bit more paint on that area and see how it goes. We're already pretty much good, but yeah, I still need to spray the top and stuff, so I'm going to angle this a little better. There it is. Alright, just like a minute or two more with the booth on. Alright, so spraying that pretty much softened everything up. There's still a tiny bit of roughness, but not too concerned once gloss goes on. There's also a few really tiny fuzzies that are on this that I'm going to wait till this dries to sand it down. But you can still see the pre-shading is there, it's just subtle now. So that's really what we want to see, is not too much crazy shadows. You can see that glossiness there, that means the paint's not dry yet, so we just need to let it sit a little bit. And let's see. Do I do a lot of art that's unrelated to garage kits, like painting, drawing? I find your color choices shading have always been fairly advanced. Thank you. Thank you. No, I don't actually. The only like kind of illustration and drawing experience I have is like chibi art that I did a lot when I was in high school. And so I don't have a formal art education. I didn't go to art school. I didn't go to design school. Everything that I learned is totally self-taught. So I do, or I did, and I do a lot of research into color theory and seeing how things, interact. I follow a lot of artists, like actual illustrators and artists on social media. So that really helps. A lot of it's just like observing what actual artists do with their colors and how they paint on a canvas, because really like what we're doing is painting on a canvas, it's just 3D. So I follow everything from anime artists to like traditional oil painters on Twitter or Instagram, because I'm interested in that, and it's completely unrelated to my actual job, which is science-based and STEM related. So this is a good side, thing that I do, because a lot of what my job is and what I study and what I'm interested in outside of garage kits and art is very technical and also detail oriented. So the two of them overlap in that aspect. But looking at art and doing all of this is kind of my side release. So I do enjoy diving into it. What I'm doing right now, though, is just cleaning up my airbrush because we are going to transition into the Mr. Lashavas color, the 03, and that will be on my Badger brush, so the smaller airbrush, 0.2 needle. But I do want to make sure this is nice and clean in case I do need to go over again with the white. Usually when I post shade, so when we'll be doing the Lashavas, I do not go back in again and like top coat that, but sometimes if you didn't blend things well, you might need to, so always keep it open as an option. Good. There we go. And I'm also going to pour a little bit more of the hardware floor lacquer thinner because I'm running pretty low on it. As it sits here in my booth, it kind of evaporates, so I never really end up using all of it. So like the cup's pretty low now. So let me pour some of that real quick. And you can see it on camera, my big jug. I need to buy more soon. I go through a lot of this stuff. And I've been painting a lot, like it doesn't feel like it, but I knock over some mixtures. I've been painting a lot lately. Okay. Oh yeah, Lashavas. I would have guessed you've been studying art for a long time. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. That actually means a lot. I'm a little embarrassed because now I'm like, here I am, bumpkin artist, self-taught. But there are so many other talented artists and illustrators and everything that are self-taught, and it's so easy now, to become self-taught. There's just so many resources available compared to in the past. So I'm just so happy, that people are able to do art and they don't necessarily have to go to school to do it or, be qualified, and that, you can make a career, basically without having an art degree. Okay, just gonna squeeze this up real quick. But yeah, that actually does mean a lot. I do try very hard to make the palettes of my kits consistent and make the colors harmonious. That's kind of the biggest thing that I try to pay attention to in my kits. I don't like the idea of having colors clash. So a lot of times, I do all these spoon mixtures, I do everything in advance. So I have a clear idea of what I'm doing when I'm going in. Oh yeah, did not switch out my airbrush, so gotta spray it out first and then switch it out. Okay, this one, the post shading, I'm going to focus a little bit more intensely on. I was trying to like move the airbrush so you guys could kind of see what I'm doing, but if I'm blocking it this time, I'm sorry. This is like the most important part technically, so I want to make sure the shadings are in the right place. So I'll still show you guys, you know, the before and after, and I'll try to kind of zoom in and out and show you guys what I'm doing, but if you don't see anything because my hand's blocking it, that's why. This will be the final step for tonight. So we are going to try to post shade all of these, and then I'll take a look and see how it goes. But yeah, I think that's it. That's all I gotta say. So I'm gonna turn on my booth again. Hit compressor. Thank you. That does mean a lot. I'm glad that somebody noticed, you know, that I try to pay attention to that stuff. Alright, one more thing. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more lash of this. I probably should have tested that before I turn all my booth stuff on, but it's not really spraying at all. So I'm gonna add a little bit more color. Again, this lash of this is pretty thinned already. At least the 03 is. It's very pale red, and they mean it. It says clear pale red, but it's pretty pale. So usually I have to add a little bit more paint into this cup. Okay. So I'm going to turn my compressor on first and then test this, and then I'll turn my booth on shortly after that. So you can see all of my mixtures here, if it will focus. Yeah, my test spoon, so it's got all sorts of rando colors on it right now. Alright, gonna test it. Starting to get kind of full. Can't really see what's going on here. Okay, yeah, it needs like a couple of layers, so we'll just go slow. Just giving you a heads up, Liliana. I see your question. I'm gonna finish this piece first, and then I will answer it while I'm like switching pieces out. Okay, just gonna do a quick look. This piece is now fully post shaded. So let's see. You can really see, especially along here, the kind of yellow, or not yellow, reddish brown lines. You're not gonna see any of those red lines because they're gonna be up against the frills. But you can see when you're like kind of facing back. Come on. There. So yeah, you can see that the lines are pretty well defined, very reddish at this point. Especially like from this angle, you can really see all the shading. So I went in between all of those frills, really post shaded. Once we matte everything down, so after we gloss coat, these are going to be all glossy and shiny. Once we flatten them down, these colors will blend out a little bit and kind of fade out. So I'm not really that worried about the color of them right now, whether or not it's like too intense or not, because it will, kind of buff itself out. As for your question, how long did it get used to airbrushing or using an airbrush? I started out with my Iwata brush, and I'd say I didn't feel like fully comfortable until maybe like 6 months or a year after use. To be honest, when I like started airbrushing, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know that you could adjust the PSI. So my very first airbrush kit is basically like airbrushed at 40 PSI. Like that paint spewed out. Like I would just press the trigger and spray it, and eventually, like as you're pressing the trigger of your airbrush, the PSI will go down, you know, because you're spraying the pressure out through your brush. Yeah, right, Fries? Yeah. And so it was probably spraying anywhere around like 30 to 25 PSI. Um, so yeah, that was interesting. I also used Tamiya acrylic paints at that time, and so those were like fun to learn how to thin and stuff. But boy, I mean, I'm still happy with how it turned out. But I look back and I'm just like, how did I like make it? Like, how did I do this? And it was okay. So yeah, paying attention to your PSI is like number one important things when you're airbrushing. Don't be like me spraying at 25, 30. People would very much laugh at me. That's like you, Fries. That's my secret. I didn't know how to use the airbrush. The other thing is like learning how to clean it effectively. That took me a little while to get used to because you know, if you don't mix your paints properly, they're going to clog up in your brush. And yes, that happened to me too. I clogged up, you know, this airbrush multiple times because I didn't know how to thin things properly. So that, you know, took a while to get used to. I wouldn't say I was 100% comfortable until I was a couple of kits in. I'd say about the time I switched to lacquer paint. Yeah, huh? Sure. Yeah, I'd say about the time I switched to lacquer paint was when I really started like, oh, okay, I can do this. And let me look real quick on my website and see how many kits that was, because I remember, you know, when I switched to lacquer. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so about 5 kits in is when I really started feeling like I can do this. I can switch to lacquer. I know what I'm doing. Time-wise, not really super reliable because you know, at the time I wasn't building quite as much. But it looks like it was about a year and a half, uh, you know, before I really started feeling like I got the hang of this brush. And this is just my Iwata. So pretty much all of my stuff on my gallery until quite recently was sprayed just with this brush, the Iwata HPC Plus. I am still learning how to use this Badger Sotar. I did not, you know, I bought this relatively recently, so I don't have a ton of experience using it, but yeah, I'm still getting used to it. That it can do a lot, but it also can go crazy real quick. So, meaning like it can spray really far out and you get a huge pattern, or it can spray really tiny. The paint thinning is also kind of like interesting on it because if you spray too close, it just splatters, and so it's always a learning process whenever you get a new tool, you know. So really, even though you get an airbrush, if you get a new one, then you got to learn how to use that tool, and so really it just comes down to practice, I think. So as of now, I feel pretty comfortable using all of my airbrushes, but it does take a while. I would just say, you know, whatever method you decide to use, you know, just keep going at it. I know people that fully hand paint still, and they have for many years, and they don't have an issue with it. They do fine. They don't have a reason to airbrush, either because of health concerns, or they don't want to, the investment's too high, whatever. I also know people who mostly airbrush, you know, and they're fine too. So it's just all tools. And if you're gonna be painting eyes and stuff, I do recommend getting some hand painting practice, you know, because there are a lot of kids with decals these days, but if you can hand paint eyes well, that will put you pretty high up on like the list of people, of talented people. There's kind of a tier ladder, you know, and if you can do all this small technical stuff, then a lot of people will be like, oh, look at that guy's work. So definitely good to exercise both skill sets, I think. Yeah. Okay. So we finished that piece. I'll look at it later and see if I like it. Looks like it's pretty good. A little bit, yeah, whatever. We're gonna keep moving on. I will decide, and then we have this whole weekend to adjust. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces left we're gonna do. And let's see real quick. I honestly would be worried about my pets as I feel like they sneak in my studio. Yeah, so that's a concern for a lot of people, is pets and air quality. So if you have access to a good window setup, or, you know, an area with great ventilation, that will help you a lot. but I also know people with allergies or with pets who choose not to airbrush because they do, you know, have those concerns. So airbrush, you definitely do have more of an investment into safety you need to put in, and it's just more expensive in general. There's no lie behind that. Airbrushing is way more expensive than hand painting. So for a lot of people, also the cost-effective way is to start out hand brushing before switching into airbrushing, and that's also what I recommend if you're just starting out, because why invest hundreds and hundreds of dollars into a hobby that you're not even going to use or enjoy? There's a lot of people I know that, you know, just kind of burnt out right away, and they thought they were going to enjoy it and they didn't. So I don't recommend shelling out, you know, the $300, $500 to get into this and then just kind of drop it, unless you have that kind of money to throw around, in which case good for you. I did not. So we're gonna start and continue this now. Testing, real quick. Can you guys see my screen? Because it kind of froze on me. And I'm not sure if you guys can see anything. Testing. Okay. That's weird. Let me shut this camera off real quick and turn it back on and see if that works. Okay. I was like, I looked over, I'm like, my hand is not there. Okay. Just disconnected it. There we go. Turn it back on. There we go. Can you see everything? Because it looks like it's showing up on mine. Should be like screen is off. Okay, great. All right, we will continue then. Let me talk to you first. And let's see. Hand brushing is more expensive than you expected. Yeah. So the startup costs of garage kit building are definitely higher up there compared to other hobbies. When you think about, you know, like crocheting or something, and you just need the yarn and your needle and, you know, a book. You know, for this hobby, you need like the sandpaper, you need the safety equipment, you need the putty, you need the primer and the paint and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, definitely higher up there involved. You definitely don't need like everything right away that people recommend. So there are just, dozens of garage kit tools and hobby tools that are recommended for use in this hobby because everybody uses different stuff. But as you're going on in your kit building hobby, you'll find out what you like using and what you don't, and then you can kind of skip the rest of that stuff. So like I remember buying nail files, like metal files, when I first started out because they were on a list that somebody recommended, and I literally never used them once. Like they're way too rough for resin. So I was like, why were these recommended? It's just like such a waste of money. So everything on my website, in my guide section, in the very like first work in progress, like how to build a garage kit, almost all of that stuff I still use to this day, minus like the acrylic paint because I don't use that anymore. But all the sandpaper, all the pin vise and stuff, I use those tools, and so that's kind of why I kept that guide up. Because I do use them on the regular, and I tried to eliminate everything that I didn't use or that like it seemed superfluous, like unnecessary, because like you're a beginner, you don't need to use all this crazy stuff. You don't need the UV clearing gel necessarily until you're a little farther in the hobby, and so just take that with a grain of salt. If you're interacting with the garage kit community, there will be a lot of people who will recommend you supplies and things, and if it's out of your budget, or if it just seems kind of like, why do I need this? You don't necessarily need to buy it to be a good garage kit builder or painter. You can definitely get by with the essentials. I did talk about briefly, like even when I first started out, I was a very poor student and pretty ghetto, and so I even used toothpicks to pin things. So I didn't necessarily like have access to a brass rod or going out and so these are about the same width, honestly. And so I used this, and it was just fine at the time. So just keep that in mind too. There are always creative solutions in order to build kits. There is no one correct way to build a garage kit. Yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure I'm the only one of the few people that has pinned things with toothpicks. If you have, let me know. We gotta join forces. But yeah, I'm very much in the camp of do what you want, and there's no right way to do things. So I'm very adamant about that, actually. Like, yeah, do whatever you want. Like, if you want to use nail polish on your kids, no one's judging you. Like, I've seen some good nail polish kits before. I'm not even gonna lie. Just experiment, and it's art. That's the whole point of it. You don't need to do all crazy stuff if you're just trying to find out something new. So, anyway, that's my minor rant. I am going to finish up with these pieces. Probably just gonna jump, straight into them. We've got 3 pieces left, so. I'll have to try it. I don't think I even have access to that anymore, the nail polish kit. It was a long time ago, but it was very interesting. It was a very interesting kit. I have seen people use nail polish like for the metallics and stuff on certain pieces, and they look great. You just gotta be wary, you can't take it off with acetone because it'll wipe off everything else, but there are creative solutions, So, okay, gonna keep going. Compressor's going on.
I thought my heart was safe. I thought
Falling in love is a thing that strikes like lightning. You just cannot forget this person. I give myself. You feel miserable when not in their presence. You just cannot forget this person. And say it's crazy. Falling. You see?
Oh, it was very nice.
I'm done. I think I'm done. So, just gonna kind of lightly sand along these edges. Took a little bit of time, mostly because I wanted to get in between every single fold there. You can barely see the blue mask. Yeah. So there's her hands, and there's the white, or the white on top. It almost looks like she's wearing like dirty gloves or something. Let's see, like my blue glove. Should have just painted her hands blue, so then they look like, you know, cleaning gloves. But yeah, so the masking tape is still on here, but you can see the shadings are, you know, a little more reddish now, pinkish as compared to like the darker brown before. They definitely, you know, show up on this. I was just kind of looking over this and deciding if I liked the positioning, if I needed to go in and do, you know, any more pre-shading, but I think that I'm pretty much good for tonight. I may go in and white top coat a couple of small areas, like after, you know, later in this week, just because there's a couple of areas that I think could use a little bit more definition. Also, what I think I'm going to do once we are in the detailing phase is go in and do that enamel wash, because if you especially look here, you can see there's this line kind of around her apron, and I could airbrush that, but I think I'm just going to add like a really faint line of enamel to really bring that out. There's also a bunch of really tiny details in the frills. They're like lines in between, you can see, and I'm going to wash those, because that way that'll bring it out. So when we say wash, that means we're going to thin down paint really thin and kind of just push it into those areas that need that definition. So that's called a wash. I just do it with enamel, so I call it enamel wash. So, and I do need to add a little bit more shading right between her breasts. So I'm just gonna turn this on real quick. Not my booth. I'm good for like 2 seconds. But I do need to add that slight line. Make sure that I'm also almost out of paint, so. There we go. Okay. So it doesn't need to be too much, just a tiny bit of more color, and then I will sand that out. There we go. She does have a sculpted, very, very slight bust line, so if you want to accentuate that just a tiny bit. Okay. So, really, I don't know if you'll even see. There you go. Kind of at the side, you can see there's a line in the middle. So I just wanted to bring that out a tiny bit more. So let me take a look at this piece and the other ones. Also a little bit of paint here. So we'll do kind of a really quick mock fitting if we can. And I'll bring over the other pieces as well. Let's see. I just need this. So majority of this kit is white, so we really don't need to do that much work to it. Kind of boring, you guys just see me shade white. But I guess this would come first. And you do want to be delicate when you're working with, you know, these pieces that are not glossed yet. This one I don't know if I can get on. I think we used tape before, so I might just have to kind of hold it. Yeah, that works. So you can see the shading here now. It's pretty clearly defined, especially when we'll put the black on. It'll either help define that or it'll make it so you don't see it at all. So if I turn around, you can see the shading in between each of these strands. Again, this looks all white now, so it doesn't really look like much, but we also have the little bow that will go on the back, and you can see that has been properly shaded now, so that will, you know, be defined, and we honestly won't even see the bow. When we're comparing this against the skin, you can see that it really starts to bring out those orangey tones. I actually just changed the color of my camera, so my camera's sensing a lot of reddish warm colors here. So yeah, there's the kind of, you know, Maid in the ribbons, and I think last step would be, I guess, to pull off that masking tape. Still tiny bit hesitant because I might do some touch up, but we might as well see how it turned out, right? So let me put these away and make sure that this is all good. Might need my pliers. Oh, forgot it. Yeah, these pieces, for the most part, like this, the bow, the bloomers are pretty much ready for a top coat gloss now, especially those bloomers, because next time we meet, this will be next Monday, we will be working on the black pieces or dark purple pieces. So, you know, this piece, and then she's got her arms, which are also that darker color. We'll be doing all of that, as well as I'm hoping the red. So the red will be a big part. We've got her bow we still need to paint, and also her shoes. So part of the reason why we did all of this today was so we can gloss top coat that and work on the shoes on Monday. And let's see. This probably sounds dumb, but if I were to try and dry fit an entire kit, is there any way to make the parts like the arms? Parts like the arms don't fall off. I've done sanding and tab cutting. Are you interested in using magnets? Because that is a huge part of kind of test fitting and making things fit. If you're not interested in, you know, getting you magnets and using them, then blue tack is a good way, or Tamiya masking tape. So a lot of times I just go in and I tape the pieces together, and that like helps it so the arms don't fall off. You just kind of gotta, if you're gonna take photos, you gotta manipulate it in a way that makes it look like it doesn't have the tape, which I've definitely done before. Usually I use Tamiya tape, like I fit the piece together. If I want to, like, you know, keep it there, I use tape. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. If you want the piece to like permanently fit together, magnets are an option, as well as pinning. Let's see, Oniyun, hi, how are you doing? We are actually just wrapping up. I'm about to rip up some tape up here. Yeah, actually, the pieces do kind of like fall apart. So usually I do a two-part approach, like I do it on either side to keep them together. And that's mostly what I do though, is I use tape on my pieces. And any areas that are like a problem area or they don't fit together really well, I either write it down or I make a mental note, because that way you're going to need some bigger puttying, some like more putty to your project, as opposed to like just filling in bubbles and stuff. So for that one, you want to probably, if you're gap filling, you want to use a two-part putty. So let me bring it over actually. So for my like gap filling, I usually use a Tamiya epoxy putty. This is the quick type, so meaning it dries quicker than their standard one. I bought this one in Japan. You can see it's got the Volks, like literally from Volks. And this stuff lasts quite a while, so let's see. I don't know how much I have left. Sorry, I know you guys are waiting on these hands. I keep just distracting. Let's pull it out. Yeah, so I don't have that much left. I just keep it in a bag so it doesn't dry out. But you can see it comes in two parts. There's the resin, and then the yellow is the hardener. And so once you mix those two equally together, you'll have some workable putty. This one dries pretty quick. It dries in like an hour and cures pretty quick after that. So that's why I like it. They also have a smooth type epoxy, which I also like, but it takes quite a while to dry and cure. Like it's a 6-hour period of drying, and then a longer gap between that. So I like stuff that dries quick and works well. So I kind of cater my purchases toward that. Okay, final step here, I guess. Moment of truth, and it might still be kind of we'll see. But we're gonna remove this masking tape. There's almost definitely going to have to be some cleanup. That's usually what I have to do, removing tape or fixing things. So to clean off your tape, you're just gonna kind of pull it up, bit by bit, and that liquid will come with it later. So I kind of try to go a little bit slow. You don't want to be ripping off your paint job. Sorry if you guys can't see. This is the halfway. You can see it's starting to come up. And I usually remove the liquid ones first. There we go. So there's a little bit of touch up. Oh wait, there's a tiny piece. That actually came up really nice. So this is pretty much it. Post appreciated. There's a really tiny bit you can see under her fingers, maybe not even visible on camera. Yeah, a little bit. So that we're gonna go in and enamel paint that detail to kind of get rid of that shading that we don't want there. That's just because we use the tape and try to block it off, and you can very rarely block off everything from your masking, especially if you're on a curved surface like this. This is an unusual curved surface. If you're just putting it on like a flat plane like here, you're not going to have as much of an issue. So yeah, if you're masking, don't be surprised if you have to go in and do a tiny bit of cleanup. But as for like the inside of her area there, that like actually masked really well, and none of the paint peeled off. So I did a great job glossing that and making it so there's no issue. There's a tiny like dot in here. Okay, it looks like a bubble that got filled, and I can't really do much about that. So yeah, this is her apron right now. It looks pretty much like how it's gonna look, minus the top here, which we're gonna be painting kind of that purple black. The more I think about it, the more I think I'm just gonna go in and paint that detail in enamel, because otherwise it's gonna be kind of an annoying masking job with not much payoff. Really, like, all we have to do with that blackish purple is paint this right here, this back, this top area that kind of leads around the front into like her front right here, and that's it. That's the only black part of this. So I am just going to like do that, I guess. Also the enamel wash, the more I look at this, I think it's gonna happen, because this kit is like really cute, but it is also pretty simple, and there's a lot of really nice tiny details I want to bring out that aren't really possible otherwise without the wash. Let's see. Let's see, I was gonna ask this earlier, but do you have the kits you've done that are listed? Yes. Are you talking about like what's on my workshop page, like my gallery, versus like what I have in my possession? Because yes, I do have some kits. Some of them are commission ones, a lot of the most recent ones. But if there's a kit you're specifically interested in looking at in my past builds, just let me know. I have a tiny bit more time right now, and then I can tell you if it was a commission work and if I have it, and I can show you real quick on camera as we wrap up. Let me put this piece away, and while you're answering, I will kind of clean up my stuff. There's really not any paint in here left, so bring it out. You hear my compressor, that's why. I will tell you the colors will be a little bit different if you're looking at it on this through this camera, because again, it's so hard to get colors to look consistent via like different media. Oh, okay, sorry. Completed ones that are not listed on your website. No, pretty much everything that I have finished is in order on that website. So I try to, I have kits that are in progress on my bench right now that are commission works that I haven't posted a lot of work in progress for, because that is generally what I try to keep private for a client until they're satisfied with it. But really, like, what you see is what you get here. So like this Maid kit that we're working on, I'm painting that one, and then I have one other commission that I'm wrapping up right now. I try not to like do too many at once, because otherwise it gets really overwhelming. But I do have another commission in the line right after I finish my other commission, so that one will be starting very, very soon. I just like have had to tell my client that it's taking a little bit longer, so they don't seem to mind. But yeah, so if you're like interested in the progress of how things go, that is like how it goes. Every kid on there. How you Fries, my paint pot is basically my rack. I've gotten in the really bad habit of just spraying on my paper towel, for better or worse. And so, for those of you airbrushing, there are such things as paint pots. You can see it's gotten some use. It has a lot of splatters and it's nasty gray on the inside, so it's had a lot of paint sprayed into it. But these days, I literally just like hang it out like that and just sit it on there. Yeah, it's a bad habit. The other thing about the Badger, so like this is an Iwata paint pot, so it works well with Iwata products. You can see that when you use this pot, you want it to kind of stick directly in there, and so the whole nozzle fits inside your paint pot. And so when you spray out your extra paint, it'll just go in directly in your pot, and any fumes will come out of here. The Badger, however, is not meant for that, and so I'm gonna try to do this without bending my needle. But you can see that the width is not long enough. So this is like the full width here. And so what you have to do if you want to spray into the pot is like come at it at an angle. Come at it at an angle. And I'm like pretty hesitant to do that with this Badger, just because it's got this needle sticking out. And one of my friends, he had a Badger too, and he just kind of like stuck it in the paint pot and it bent the needle. So after that, I'm like trying to be a little more careful especially with the Badger. I already had one bad run-in and I had to replace the needle once. Iwata literally never had a problem before, so just how it is. That's my long-winded excuse of me just like being so impatient I can't move over for 1 second. Use my paint pot. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up what we are gonna do tonight. Thank you for tuning in this long. It's ended up being a little bit of a longer stream, but I'm glad we got most of the white out of the way. So next time what we're gonna do, I will top coat before I cover that. I will top coat and gloss all of the white that we just painted, as well as like double check and make sure it's all good. That way, like when we meet next time, the pieces will be nice and shiny and I'll be able to show them off, and the gloss will definitely be, a little more showing off those details. So that's the big thing. Next stream, I guess, will be Monday, May 17th. So a couple days gap in between, but we always appreciate your guys' views. Thank you very much for tuning in, Quiliana. I appreciate it, and as well as all your questions. I'm always happy to answer questions. So this was fun. And I'm hoping that once that black goes on, a lot of those details will be brought out, because this is a pretty simple kit the more I look at it. Anyway, hope you guys all have a great night, good weekend, and stay cool. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.